Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and in this video we're going to introduce animations into our application. This is going to be really great. We can animate when we add new resolutions, when we delete new resolutions, and much more. So let's get started on that now. Okay, so we've got this thing working really well. Let's add some niceties to it now. We're secure, and we have some nice user experience things, but what we really want is some cool animations, because seriously, that's what we all want. We all want cool animations. So let's actually head to our resolutions wrapper, and let me open up that and find the resolutions wrapper. Here we go. And what we want to do is we want to animate every single time one of these resolutions is added into our application here. Every time we add a new one, instead of having it just pop into the screen, let's have it do a nice little fade in. So let's actually head to our command line first, because what we need is we need a React package. I'm going to open up a new tab. I'm going to change directories to the root of my site, and I'm going to npm install -- save. Now this is a long one. It's react add-ons css transition group. Now this is an official React package that allows us to do some really great CSS animations. Really in the vein of if you've ever used the ng animations, so like Angular animations where it adds a class when something's loaded, when something is done loading, when something's about to leave, and when something's leaving and stuff like that. It just adds a whole bunch of classes during any given point where you'd want to add an animation. Let's go ahead and install this. Okay, so we now have CSS transition group. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this whole thing, this whole React transition group, so we don't have to write that again. Let's head to the top of our page and let's import this thing. So we can import, and we want to import React CSS transition, spell this correctly, transition group from, and then we can just go ahead and paste in that React add-ons. Okay, so we want this React transition group. Let's make sure that this found this. Make sure I didn't spell anything incorrectly. It would tell you here if you did. Let's come back. We now have access to React CSS transition group. What this is a React component that will wrap around your stuff. So let's head here, and I'm gonna use this like so. I'm going to put this React CSS transitions group here. I'm going to put another one just below this. I'm going to close this out here like that. Okay, cool. And this is going to take a bunch of properties. For instance, let's go ahead and just hit enter, because the properties for this are stuff we're going to want to use. The properties for this are stuff we're going to want to see. For instance, the first one is transition name. And now transition name is going to be what's used in your class. Now I actually wrote some CSS for this already, and we're going to go over that in great detail, but I want to make sure I get the right name based on the CSS that I have here. Let's scroll up here. So we have resolution enter, resolution load here. So resolution load is the class. I'll go over what's going on here in a minute. We can say the transition name is just going to be resolution load. Now let's have another line, and it's going to be expecting some things. So we're going to say transition and then enter timeout. And this is how long this transition is going to take, right? This is how long your animation is going to take. So again, let's consult the styles, because I have these taking a certain amount of time. I have the enter taking 0.06 seconds. So that is 600 milliseconds here, like that. And that's the timeout for the enter. That's how long it should take to enter. Now, if you can imagine, we're going to need a transition leave timeout as well, which I actually had as a different time. I believe I had it as 4. Yeah, so I had it as 4, so this is 400 here. Cool, so let's save this. We now have transition enter timeout, transition enter leave, and let's refresh and check this out. Nice. So I have this set up with CSS, and it's going to happen really super quickly, so I can't show you necessarily what's going on in the classes, but let's go ahead and just add a new one of jump around. Right? Let's hit enter, and beautiful. Did you see that slide in there? Awesome. So that's really what we want, and when we delete one, it fades out the other way. Man, that's good. Okay, so let's check out what's going on there. When it's loading, it's hitting this enter, and when it's leaving, like it's being deleted, it's hitting this leave. Now, what this does is it triggers a class. So we have the transition name as resolution load. So let's head to my CSS. You'll notice that I'm saying when this gets a class of resolution load hyphen enter, when it gets that class, then run this animation. The animation is slide in, and it's going to give this a cubic Bezier for the easing function, and the slide in, let's scroll down, is actually opacity 0, transform, translate 3D. Super cool. Actually, let's get rid of this opacity on here right now, like that. So we just have just the animation, and the opacity is getting set in the animation. Let's make sure that this in fact works how we want it to. There we go. I saw a little jump in opacity when I added one, so we can now just say do handstands. These are all things I like to do, by the way. And now there's no little jump. I think there was something weird with a transition on this that was causing that little flicker, and I think that might have been setting the opacity on the enter. But now you can see it works great. And likewise, so when it gets that class, it runs that animation. Okay, so as it's entering, it's getting this class, and then after it's done being entered, like after it shows up on the page, this class is gone, and the animation is taking the exact length of the animation, so we don't have to worry about it running multiple times. Now let's check out the leave animation, of which I also kind of want to just make this like that. Okay, so let's make sure this works as well too. But the resolution load, remember, is the name of the animation, and when it gets the class of leave, it's going to take 0.04. It's going to take 0.4 seconds to slide out. Now, slide out is just setting the opacity from 1 to 0 and transforming it to 50 pixels to the right. You might be wondering why I use Translate3d. If you don't know too much about transforms, using Translate3d actually enables the graphics processor, so your animations are going to be smoother if you're doing translating or transforming, any of kind that for that matter. Okay, so we have slide out. Let's make sure this works perfectly. Cool. Although I do want to dance in my office, so I'm going to add that back. Cool. Wow, that's just really super nice, right? I mean, that just adds so much to this application that didn't exist before. You load it, that fades in. That's great. And in reality, how much did that take us to add here? We just had this React CSS transitions group. We gave it some times for animation. We gave it a name. And if you wanted to use an animation library that already has these animations programmed for you, then use an animation library, and then you could just drop in those animations. There's tons of animation libraries out there for CSS. It's super cool, and if you used like a Sass or a stylus-based one, then you'd be able to really easily integrate it with this resolution with your class-leave or your class-enter. Now, I personally like to write a lot of animations myself, so I wrote these by hand, but you certainly don't have to. If you're interested more in CSS animations, I have a premium series called Next Level CSS Animations and Transitions. It teaches you a lot about building not only smooth animations, but teaches you about things like the Bezier curves and just nice ways to do things in animation. So check that out if you're interested in learning more about animations. Okay, so this is pretty cool, but we have this sort of extraneous tag. It's sitting within a UL. Let's actually check out something that's really cool that we can do here. We can get rid of this UL. First thing I want to do is I want to grab this class name of resolutions. Then I'm just going to delete this unordered list entirely from the face of the earth. Now I can have the class name on the transition group. I can also specify what the transition group component should be. So we can say component is equal to, and then this is a string. I'm just going to have an unordered list. So now this transition group acts as an unordered list, but it still does all of the stuff that we want it to do as the transition group, and it even has the class name we want. So our site looks and functions just the way it does. We don't have any extraneous elements sitting around where we don't need them. Amazing, right? So this is animations using React CSS transition group. Now I'm not done here. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you could use these transition groups to actually animate your pages while we do page transitions. We want to have something when you go from about to resolutions. I mean, that should be pretty cool, right? So I'm going to show you in the next video how we can use a React CSS transition animation group to be able to animate when a page loads itself. So as always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. If you want to gain more React Meteor knowledge, there are exclusive videos in this series that you can only get from purchasing at store.leveluptutorials.com, along with all of the code examples from all of these other videos, so you can check your code against every single video, especially if you're having problems. Make sure everything looks the exact same. The only thing I don't recommend doing is copying and pasting that code, because you want to get your hands used to writing it and get used to understanding the possible issues that could come up whenever you do face a problem. I think one of the most important things when learning in this stuff is making lots of mistakes, getting error messages, reading those error messages, and fixing them, because that's how that stuff's going to get burned into your brain. So as always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. So if you have any questions or comments, if you comment the video, hit me up at Twitter or Facebook at Level Up Tutorials. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.